enchilada intifada notwithstanding, it's pretty much beyond argument that Portland, Oregon is the national capital of violent radical leftism. Back in 2020, Portland was where the George Floyd riots lasted the longest, where they were the most violent and the most depraved, more so than anywhere else. In fact, it often seemed to outside observers as if Antifa and BLM were the most powerful institutions in that once fair city. Whatever Antifa and BLM wanted to do, they did it. As a practical matter, it was no different, really, than a Mexican frontier town being run by a drug cartel. The feckless douchebag mayor and the feckless douchebag city council, well, they were either fellow travelers of the rioters, or they were terrified of being killed if they tried to stop it, or some combination of the two. And how do we know that? Because in the middle of 5 months of daily anarchy and lawlessness, the rioters demanded that Portland defund their police department. And what did Portland do? They dutifully complied. And now, half a decade later, it seems not much has changed in Portland because they are at it again. It's Friday the 20th of June. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where you kids better settle down or I will shoot a little beanbag at you, and it might leave a mark. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about the city we used to call the Rose City, but how it's more like our own fun little Mogadishu now. Things were pretty quiet in Portland, at least by Portland standards, while the enchilada intifada was popping off down in LA, but Portland's what they call a stretch runner in the horse racing business. She may start off a bit slow, but by the time they get to the finish line, she will have blown past all her competitors. So, for reasons that are unknown at press time, the Antifa mob that functions as Portland's de facto city government decided not to kick off their 2025 George Floyd Memorial Summer of Love presented by ICE, and we don't mean the chewing gum, until the day before yesterday, Wednesday, 18 June. And it took them most of a day to fully round into form, but hey, it's the sort of thing that tends to happen when you set down the tools of the trade and go on holiday for a while. Your first day back, you are often quite worthless. But by yesterday, they had managed to shake off the ring rust. There's my obligatory one wrestling reference per episode. And by God, they were playing the game better than they have since that time they superglued all the fire exits shut on the federal building and then tried to burn it down with everyone inside. Because there is nothing that says I toil in the service of a morally righteous cause like burning people to death. And maybe we found the secret to why they always get such a late start. Maybe they're just waiting to see where the other cities' rioters have set the bar so that they can then try to exceed it, like the champion high jumper who goes last after everybody else. Maybe we should treat this like the Olympics of civil disorder and start properly recognizing these fine young men and women for the quality of their efforts. You know, I'm real happy with the way our team performed this year. Really pleased we took the gold in interpretive arson, although Minneapolis gave us a real tough battle there. A little disappointed we only took bronze in the 500-meter loot and run. We had high hopes going into that one. Felt like we were a lock for the gold. We blew the handoff in that final, and what do you do, I guess? Oh, and I want to say congratulations to Kenosha for their big win in the Molotov cocktail relay. Just got done watching it. Very exciting stuff. And I guess, hey, who knows? Maybe if Portland is rioting over any specific thing, or just maybe they're rioting because it's riot season and Trump is in the White House again, because it's a strange thing how much less antipathy they have toward the organs of the central government when the central government is being run by Democrats. Now, what did Donald Trump ever have to do with the death of George Floyd? Unclear. But when the George Floyd riots got to Portland, it was the central government that was the main target. And that was abundantly clear as a thing can be. What did any federal agent from any federal department have to do with the death of George Floyd? Also unclear, but that's the building where they tried to burn everybody alive. And then Joe Biden wins the White House, allegedly. And all of a sudden, all of those same Antifa tough guy iconoclasts who wanted to burn down the federal building last year, they are happily standing in line for their government injection, and they've got their government-mandated N95 face diaper securely fastened around their nose and mouth, per the government-mandated instructions on the government website. All the while lecturing others about how they should always believe what government scientists say. The point being, did you ever get the feeling like the whole radical anarchist iconoclast thing is maybe just a bit of a pose? Because when you change your whole outlook on government according to which party occupies the White House at the moment, I feel kind of like it's just a pose. And I feel like our fake news media may have also come to that realization, because have you noticed a big difference in their coverage between this year's riots and the original George Floyd Summer of Love 5 years ago? Because I have. The reporters on the ground, they are no longer trying to interview the protesters, like, at all, which they did incessantly the last time around, but I guess they've gotten a bit gun-shy now, having learned a hard lesson during their coverage of the various pro-terrorism protests on the college campuses. And the hard lesson was this: these people have no idea what they're protesting for or protesting against. They are empty-headed morons. And the fact that they currently attend the most prestigious, most expensive universities in the country is a rather damning indictment, not just of the cause in which they are protesting, but indeed of those universities themselves. The fact that no attempts are being made to interview the participants in these riots can and should be taken, I think, as a tacit admission by your fake news media that they do fully understand there is no worthy cause that is being advanced here. These riots exist because there are idiots who enjoy destroying property and looting stores, there are idiots who are willing to finance it, and there are idiots in city governments who are willing to allow it, or who are being bribed in exchange for allowing it. Would that be the sleaziest story of government corruption we've ever heard? No, not by a long shot it wouldn't. And there's a point we talked about the other day that I want to briefly revisit here, and it's about who has the rights and who doesn't, and what those rights actually are. There is, to reiterate the point, there is no such thing as a right to peaceful protest. There's no such thing as a right to any kind of protest. Really, the word protest appears 0 times in the Constitution. The right to peaceably assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances extends only so far as it infringes upon the right and the ability of ordinary citizens to go about their business in peace and to use public locations for their intended purpose. In other words, the guy who wants to drive his car down the main thoroughfare so he can get to the office and go to work, his right to do that, even if there is only one of him, far outweighs the right of any 2,000 Antifa douchebags who want to shut down that main thoroughfare so they can march to City Hall while chanting inane leftist slogans. And it seems as if many, or most, of our big cities are being run by people who either don't understand that reality and that distinction, or they just don't give a good goddamn. And Portland seems to be the place where the local authorities understand it least of all. Portland's leaders seem to operate in the belief that mobs of protesters are the ones with all the rights. And if law-abiding citizens are being inconvenienced or harmed or terrorized or worse, well, they simply do not care. In 2020, there was no city that could hold a candle to Portland in terms of sheer sustained lawlessness for pretty much half of that calendar year. Early May to late September, the Portland city center was owned by BLM and Antifa. They didn't even take a break in June to honor Pride Month like most of the other cities did. The Portland PD declared an unlawful assembly for 100 nights in a row at one point. That's over 3 months for those of you fans keeping score at home. And each night, they did little or nothing to enforce it because the mayor and the council had so thoroughly defunded and emasculated them by that point that they might as well have been freaking blow-up police dolls. To the extent that law enforcement ever used the proper application of force to quell the disturbances, it was federal law enforcement. Because what, these guys are trying to burn down our building with all of us inside, and we're supposed to not respond in force? Well, yes, that's exactly right, said douchebag Mayor Ted Wheeler. The Trump administration has dangerously escalated the situation here. We didn't have any problem until he sent his federal thugs to start abusing our poor innocent arsonists. This is completely intolerable. And yes, of course, that is the exact self-same canard you just heard last week from Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. So whatever else may have changed these last 5 years, I guess lawless Democrat mayors didn't write themselves any new or better material. Portland used to be one of the nicest cities in the country. In terms of location, locations don't get much more picturesque than that. But around 20 years ago, a terrible thing started happening to Portland. Lots of Californians started moving there. And this is way before fleeing California became as fashionable as it is now. And a lot of the Californians who moved up to Oregon went there because the marijuana laws for a brief time were more lenient there than they were here in California. And they brought their wacky woke politics with them because of course they did, just as California emigres have done in various other places throughout the West. And what are you left with after just a couple of decades? You are left with the worst, most unlivable city in North America. I'm done. That's all I got. See you Sunday. Blast Radius 8 Eastern 5 Pacific. Get off my lawn.